Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we have all heard the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, meaning that a picture or an image alone may be able to portray a better meaning or a better story than words. Here, in this trial, from the testimony and evidence, you will learn that with this defendant, Kimberly LaCount, many, many, many thousands of her words paint a picture. A picture of first-degree murder committed as a result of her planning and her encouragement. A picture of terror and violence inflicted upon an innocent and unsuspecting family on June 6, 2016. Terror and violence committed at her direction and made possible only through her actions. A picture of a conspiracy started by this woman, the defendant, Kimberly LaCount, and carried out by her lover. A shooting that would result in the death of Alice Kuhn, sitting at night in the driver's seat of her Jeep, in the driveway of her parents' home. A conspiracy that would result in the shootings of Peggy and Robert Bob Kuhn in their own bedroom hallway, culminating in Peggy's death and ruining Bob's life forever. By this defendant stealing away his wife and his daughter. The defendant's own words that you will hear, see, and have during this trial paint a picture of lust, of gluttony, and of the most extreme type of selfishness. Her own words and actions showing to you an absolute disregard for human life and a complete, deliberate disregard for the safety of others. This defendant's lover is a man named Kipling Harris, with whom she was having a torrid affair for several months prior to the shootings and murders. You will learn this defendant was cheating on Alice with Kipling Harris. You will learn she was cheating on Alice with Kipling Harris while living in the Kuhn's home. And from inside the Kuhn's own home, this woman, the defendant, conspired with her lover to kill her wife Alice. And in this web of a conspiracy between these two lovers, so too were caught Peggy and Bob Kuhn. This plan was not only started and organized by this defendant, but it was facilitated and made possible by this defendant. In this trial, you will see, through LaCount's own words and actions, that Kimberly LaCount helped devise a plan. She encouraged Harris to commit the shooting. She proposed suggestions to Harris on how, when, and where to commit these shootings. But you will also learn that this defendant did so much more than just weaponize her words. She provided Harris with the murder weapon. And when they finally decided the date and the time, she made her victims vulnerable and available to her lover the night of June 6th, 2016. The Coon family home, for many, many years, was located at 6293 North 88th Avenue in Glendale. In June 2016, Bob was 69 years old. Peggy was 65 years old at the time. Living with Bob and Peggy in the spring of 2016 was their daughter Alice, 47 years old at the time. Alice's wife, Kimberly LaCount, this defendant, living with Alice at Bob and Peggy's house. Alice and this defendant's two young sons, Jerome and Gunnar. Alice and LaCount had been in a long-term relationship for many, many years prior to the shootings and murders. By June 2016, the two had been legally married for over 2 years. Their two sons, Jerome and Gunnar, approximately 9 years old and 8 years old, respectively. And when Alice and her wife, this defendant, found themselves in unstable housing, an unstable housing situation, Bob and Peggy welcomed Alice and LaCount into their home. And with this defendant, you will learn through this trial, came a lot. In addition to Jerome and Gunnar, this defendant had two sons in their tween/teenage years from another marriage, who would visit and stay regularly at the Coons. She had her oldest son, a 19-year-old, a man by the name of Trey, T-R-E-S, last name James. And then there was Jalil, J-A-H-L-I-L, Scurlock, S-C-U-R-L-O-C-K, Trey's best friend and roommate. Jalil, also 19 years old, a young man this defendant called her own son. Alice had a child from a previous relationship. You will hear the name Caitlin. That's Alice's teenage daughter at the time. She lived out of state, but you may learn through the course of this testimony that for long periods of time, such as a summer break, Caitlin would stay at the Coons house with Alice and the other children. Bob and Peggy Coon welcomed them all. They did their best to make sure there was room for everyone, whenever needed. But ladies and gentlemen, that was not enough, never enough, to satisfy this defendant. You will learn this defendant also came with a lot of drama. Unnecessary and needless drama. Life-altering, life-ending drama. During this time period, the defendant was and remained incredibly active on adult-oriented websites. She met Kipling Harris in late winter, around the end of February 2016, early March 2016, and almost immediately began an extramarital affair. The affair was with Kipling Harris. And this affair began in the time period just prior to Alice moving back home with her wife and her 2 little boys. And instead of helping or bettering her situation, a situation that the defendant complained oh so much about in her texts, in social media, instead of doing that, she began immediately having sex with Harris, wherever and whenever she could. You will see almost immediately she began pledging her eternal love to Harris. You will hear and see and have with you constant texts between Harris and LaCount. LaCount texting about wanting him emotionally, wanting him physically, wanting him sexually. You will see and hear many texts along each of those lines. The defendant telling Harris, "You are my love, my king." Repeatedly calling Harris, "my love." Saying things such as, "I love you all the way. I miss you immensely." And even in the hours right before the shootings and murders, telling Harris, quote, "I love you more than you know." Throughout their affair, the state's evidence will show sexually explicit texts, photographs, and videos documenting daily LaCount's affair with Harris, all occurring while she's living at the Coon House and under Alice's nose. Ladies and gentlemen, this behavior not only continuing, but escalating after the defendant moved in with Bob and Peggy. In this trial, you will learn that Alice is also referred to as Alex or Al, and Alice making the difficult decision in her own life to be identified as Jerome and Gunner's father So throughout this trial, please know that the victim, Alice Coon, will be referred to as she or her, or him or he. You will hear all of us call Alice by her birth name, Alice, by her name, Al, and by her name, Alex. But the one word we ask throughout this entire trial, you please give her, is victim. Because she is the victim of defendant Kimberly LaCount. And while Alice made these incredibly important decisions about her identity and her role in this world, you will learn how this defendant manipulated these facts, lied about these facts, and exaggerated Alice's life choices. You will see and hear how the defendant would belittle, make fun of Alice in her messages with her lover, Harris. You will see and hear LaCount create false and dramatic stories to anyone who would listen. These dramatically false and fake and convoluted and complicated stories she would tell to anyone who would listen about what she claimed her life was with Alice and with Alice's parents. You will learn at the same time LaCount had absolutely no problem exposing Alice's children, Jerome and Gunnar, to her affair with Giblin Harris. And this behavior lasted for several months, all under the Coon's nose. You will see through the evidence that, or the extent of this unsustainable double life that the defendant was choosing to live, culminating in murder. We know that tucked between the long Memorial Day holiday and the 4th of July weekend is the month of June. For many of us, June is supposed to be a quiet month, the start of the summer months. Children returning from school, summer break starting, and family vacations being planned or even started. But none of that, the peace, the quiet, the fun, the family, the vacations, were meant to be, or ever will be, for Alice, Peggy, and Bob. That is because, as you will see through the course of this trial, LaCount had other plans. You will see and hear evidence that LaCount and her lover had other plans for that summer in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, June 6, 2016 was a Monday. 3 days before was Alice's birthday. But you will see and hear that this defendant certainly didn't spend Alice's birthday weekend with Alice. She was with her lover instead. And by that first week of June 2016, make no mistake, Kimberly Harris was so much more to the defendant than her lover. By that point, without doubt, Kimberly Harris was the defendant's co-conspirator. Through this trial, you will learn about and watch this torrid extramarital affair grow. You will learn about and watch this conspiracy grow and evolve. The judge will tell you during this trial that in any criminal case in Arizona, even murder cases, the state does not have to prove motive for the crime. Motive is not an element of any offense in any crime in Arizona. And motive certainly is not an element, as you will learn, in any of the crimes that the defendant is charged with. But through this evidence, you will see her choices and decisions were clear, as were her actions. You will learn through her electronic communications that she said she was tired of being married. She was certainly done and tired and over with being married to Alice, and she was done and had enough, according to her, of being in Bob and Peggy's house. And in summarizing her words, under their thumb, she was tired of her often complained about money troubles. I would suggest the evidence will show you that the defendant is a very needy person who craves attention from anyone. And while the defendant may want you to believe and pretend this whole thing is a simple misunderstanding, you will see and hear through the state's evidence nothing could be further from the truth. You will learn and see through the evidence firsthand that the defendant garnered the most amount of attention by playing the victim, a victim of domestic violence abuse. And that's how she portrayed herself to anyone and everyone who would listen, except in front of and with the Coons. And you will see how her stories grew, how these claims exaggerated and evolved, and how it was this that was the catalyst for all the tragic events that happened on June 6, 2016. You will see, read, and hear how LaCount used her words, often graphic, sometimes erotic, and almost always sexually charged, as weapons. You will hear and see the nature of her exaggerations and attempted manipulations. The extent she went to, you will all see, to make other people believe all that she was saying. You will see evidence that the defendant pretended to be a damsel in distress. And also through this evidence, you will see and know she was anything but. This trial is about this defendant doing everything she could to weaponize everyone in her circle against Alice, against the Coons, Peggy and Bob. And you will learn that it was this defendant who found the ultimate weapon, the perfect weapon of her choosing in her lover, Harris. And you will learn that it was LaCount who provided her lover the handgun stolen from the victims themselves. That was the murder weapon. Through this trial and the law the judge will read to you, you will learn that the law does not reward or excuse the defendant's behavior just because she had Kipling Harris commit the shootings and murders instead of doing it herself. The judge will also tell you that the law recognizes direct and circumstantial evidence as exactly the same, to be treated exactly the same under the law. If that was not the case, as you probably already inferred, then any criminal defendant, even those accused of murder, could never be found guilty if they didn't leave any eyewitnesses in their wake. Over the next several weeks, you will hear and see these fabrications, these exaggerations. And ladies and gentlemen, you will learn that Harris was an all-too-willing lover and enthusiastic co-conspirator. And in every way possible, you will learn through the evidence that LaCount was both the principal in these crimes, as well as Harris's accomplice in these crimes. I just used the word accomplice. Several of you may remember that word from questioning by the attorneys last week. In this trial, the judge will tell you accomplice means a person who, with the intent to promote or facilitate the commission of the offense, does any of the following: solicits or commands another person to commit the offense, aids, counsels, agrees to aid, or attempts to aid another person in planning or committing the offense, or provides means or opportunity to commit the offense. The judge will tell you, under Arizona law, a defendant is criminally accountable for the conduct of another if the defendant is an accomplice of such other person in the commission of the offense, including any offense that is a natural or probable or reasonably foreseeable consequence of the offense for which the person was an accomplice. You will see that this defendant's choices and deliberate course of conduct has earned her this seat in this courtroom. So what brings us here together? On June 6, 2016, in the evening, slightly before 11 o'clock, the Glendale police officers responded to what turned out to be a triple shooting at the Coon home. Just one moment as we advance.
Do you want us to take it down while you're looking, or leave it up?
Sit in.
Take it
Yes,
down?
please. Thank you, sir. If I may continue, Judge?
Go ahead.
Thank you. In a shocking and bloody scene, officers located 3 devastatingly injured people, all of whom had sustained gunshot wounds to the head. The police initially find Alice alone in the front driver's seat of her Jeep, bleeding from the head. You will hear that Alice was shot 3 times directly in the head with a gun so close that the bullets and the soot that comes with the discharge of the gun also burned the skin around the bullet's entrance wound. These were devastating. You will learn there was no way Alice could have survived this deadly assault, and Alice dies at the hospital. Alice's mother, Peggy, she was found on the floor on the bedroom hallway just outside of her master bedroom, just inside the garage door interior entrance, where all the bedrooms, where all those kiddos we just talked about would stay. Peggy was in her night clothes, having already gone to bed the night of June 6th. You will learn Peggy was shot once. She was shot once directly in the face. The gun so close to her, it burned her skin. And Peggy collapsed in that bedroom hallway, never to get up again. Peggy, like her daughter, could not survive such a devastating injury, passing away like her daughter at the hospital. Bob, Peggy's husband, Alice's father, he was right next to Peggy, right behind her, when Peggy was shot. He was standing just outside of their master bedroom, coming into the hall. You will learn Bob was shot twice directly in the head, in his face, and a coup de grace on the top of his head when he's down. Bob survived these injuries. Bob was able, as he started and continued to bleed profusely, tried to get help. He tried to find his phone. Bob was able to make it out of the house, and you will see the blood trail where Bob stumbles into his next door neighbor's yard, trying to get help, covered in blood, before collapsing and almost bleeding to death in front of his neighbor's home. Bob only tried to help his family, what also should have been fatal injuries. Interestingly, the police discovered the only adult without a single injury, without a scratch, is defendant Kimberly LaCount. Police learned that the defendant and her 2 sons were indeed inside the home at the time Bob and Peggy were shot. She was in a nightshirt with not a drop or speck of blood on her. She was the only adult that was somehow safe that night, along with Alice's 2 children, from this violent intruder. Once heroic efforts were made to locate and try to rescue the 3 dying victims, the crime scene investigation began. If we could please now, Judge. Mr. will you tell me when it's in?
Yeah,
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Bob and Peggy's home. Alice's Jeep is the red one that you can see in the driveway. Here is another angle of how the Jeep was left after Alice was carried out. The blood trails, the drag marks and blood from the Glendale officers. You follow that photograph, ladies and gentlemen, where you can just start to see some of the landscaping. You're going to learn that's the trail Bob took after being shot twice to try and get help for the terrible attack that just happened in his home. This is the bedroom hallway. From looking towards the photo, ladies and gentlemen, the garage, that interior door, is right where the photographer is standing. This is the hallway where Peggy loses her life and Bob loses his wife. This is a little farther down the hallway, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the lights, Your Honor. Right outside of the master bedroom. Peggy and Bob's bedroom. This is a slightly different angle. This is where Bob was shot twice in the head. This is the defendant, Kimberly LaCount. Those early morning hours after the shootings, as the victims are struggling to survive or succumbing to their devastating injuries. This is how she looks at the police station. No injuries. Because the police will learn that she was safely tucked inside a bedroom with her 2 children at the time her lover came in to shoot to kill Peggy and to shoot to kill Bob. Shortly after the victims are at the hospital and the crime scene is cleared, officers speak to make sure it is safe for everyone to go inside and try to piece together in all this ruin what happened. We will learn that police find LaCount's cell phone in that same bedroom where she was tucked inside safely with her 2 boys. Text messages between Harris and LaCount would ultimately reveal, as you will see, a conversation in which LaCount informed Harris of what each of the victims were doing or where they were located inside the home approximately 30 minutes before the shootings. This would be approximately 10:14 p.m., the night of June 6, 2016. We will have this evidence. We will go through it slower with bigger font so that we are all able to read it wanted to share with you. You will learn that the defendant has Kipling Harris, her lover, a man she calls Kipper, entered into her phone as Nibbles and Bits Kipper. So you will be able to see how the police traced and how all of you can follow along. And what you will see starting at 10:14 p.m. is LaCount telling her lover where Bob and Peggy were. LaCount confirmed for her lover where she was. LaCount said where Jerome and Gunnar, the boys, were. LaCount also shares where the family dogs are located. Ladies and gentlemen, you will learn and have with you that 10 minutes before the shootings that cost Bob everything and lost Alice and Peggy's lives. That LaCount tells her lover she's going out to the Jeep, smoking with Alice. 8 minutes before the shooting, around 10:46 p.m., Harris texts LaCount that he is right around the corner. Again, we will have this evidence and we will go through it. At 10:45 p.m., Harris texts, "Where are you?" LaCount responds, "I'm going out to smoke with Alex." LaCount then prompts, "Are you at storage yet?" Harris types around the corner. You will see less than 10 minutes later, the time period where the shootings and ultimately the murders occur. Harris texts LaCount, "Delete everything." We will come back to that interesting text by LaCount, "Are you at storage yet?" in just a few minutes. You will also learn that in the short time frame before the shootings and murders, before Harris leaves to sneak up on Bob, Peggy, and Alice, he starts to lose his nerve. He shares that he starts to lose his nerve and not being able to follow through with everything. You will see in response to learning that, the defendant sends Harris sexually explicit images and sexually charged texts. You will see that she does everything she can so that she can convince Harris to stay calm and to soothe his nerves. You'll see she settles him down. You'll see she pumps him up. You'll see she gushes about her love for him. Soon thereafter is when she tells Harris, "Nerves settled, plan on track," where he can find everyone at the time of the murders. You will learn LaCount draws Alice out to the Jeep, the red Jeep, in her parents' driveway. And when Harris approaches under the cover of dark and shoots Alice 3 times in the head, LaCount's now into the house through that interior garage door. The garage door opened and unlocked for her lover. And that her lover, Harris the shooter, enters the Coons home that night in the few minutes after 10:46 p.m. and encounters Peggy in her pajamas in the hallway. Shoots to kill her. Immediately next, shooting to kill Bob. Harris, her lover, and the shooter, was able to immediately exit the house. And the call for help from inside the Coon home does not occur until after Harris has been able to get away. You will hear that the detectives in the early part of the investigation find a nearby home has surveillance cameras. Surveillance video is reviewed and obtained, and you will see it. The video depicts a truck, a black pickup truck, LaCount's black pickup truck, stopping and turning off its headlights around the corner from the Coon's home. At the same time, we're starting to get those text exchanges going back and forth between the defendant and her lover in the minutes before the shootings. The police later confirmed it indeed is LaCount's black pickup truck that you will see on these surveillance videos. You will watch as it is LaCount's truck that is seen driving towards the Coons, stopping short of turning onto Bob and Peggy's street. The lights going off in the minutes before the shootings. You will see that within a minute or so after the shootings, a large subject running from the direction of Bob and Peggy's house to get into that truck on the passenger side door. You will learn Kipling Harris is 6 foot 8 inches tall. You will watch as the truck, if not speeds, hurries through what ultimately is a stop sign to get out of the neighborhood. Oh, thank you, sir.
It's going to be 11:58, so
I appreciate it.
I want to start. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break here for lunch. Just a couple of things before you go. If you will be back by 1:15 at the very latest, at 1:15 the jury person will be here to give you an explanation regarding the jury fund. A couple of things with just court. You are welcome to bring in any beverage, non-alcoholic obviously, but any beverage you wish to bring into the courtroom, tea, coffee, soda, whatever you want. Sometimes it's hit or miss, we get water bottles delivered, and sometimes they don't let us use bottles of water. So if you have your own canisters you want to fill up, that's great, and then Stacy can fill you in on everything else. When you're at lunch now, just please remember the admonition while you're at lunch. No research about the case. When you're talking about the case, you can go ahead and leave your notebooks on your chair. And just as an aside, next week, again, we're not going to be here. Monday's a holiday. We are not here Tuesday. That was one of the pre-blocked days. I think we advise you guys the 24th. If not, the 24th, which is a week from Monday, is also, we're going dark. So if we didn't tell you ahead of time, I'm telling you now, we won't be in trial. So if you have things you need to plan, doctor's appointments, other appointments, things like that, just know we won't be in trial on February 24th, a week from Monday. With that, we'll go ahead and exclude the jury.
Please rise.